everybody, it's Allie. So I just went live into my private team essential oil page, and I realized the message I think could benefit a lot of people. So I'm coming in here live to share the same information. So I live in Lansing, Michigan. I am a graduate of Michigan State University. I am a Spartan. Michigan State University is literally a couple of miles down the road from me. I am there all the time. And if you saw any of the news from last night, we had yet another mass shooting, mass casualty event in our country, and it happened at Michigan State University. I didn't go to bed until after 1 a.m. until they knew that they caught the shooter, and they caught him less than 2 miles away from my house. So it was a little unnerving. I want to talk about trauma. And what this did was very interesting for me, because we live in a world now where we experience acute trauma every single day, whether we consciously recognize it or not. Okay, if you, I walked away from the courtroom. I ended my career as a trial prosecutor. I've stayed in the field for 28 years, but 20 years ago was my last time in the courtroom, and my time as a prosecutor was traumatic. A lot of death threats because of the types of cases that I worked on, and I couldn't really go to restaurants because it wasn't safe. I was always, if I was in a space, I needed to know where the back exit was. If I was in a movie theater, I needed to sit in the chair closest to the back exit, which was probably not good for my eyesight. And over the years, I had gotten out of that mode because I was teaching and nobody needed to basically kill me. I actually had the thought a couple of weeks ago that I had gotten back into that mode, because I was in a restaurant, and the first thing that I did was I scanned and I looked for the back exit and asked the waitress for a door at the back exit. And my friend who was with me said, "Don't you want to sit in the sunny window?" And I said, "No, because if something happens, we got to get out of here." And I'm like, holy crap, I'm back. I'm back in that. And it's because of the world that we live in. So trauma, fear, and fright are all emotions that store in us at the cellular level, okay? They store in the limbic region of the brain, and they store in our cells like a hard drive. We are basically a walking hard drive. And if we don't process and release the trauma, it will create physical issues. I can tell you that without a doubt. I don't need to give you a research study. I am basically the walking research study, because I basically went through endocrine collapse. And every day I am having to strengthen and nourish my endocrine system, because once it starts going into fatigue and then collapse, it's really hard to pull yourself out. Now, here's the question. How do you know if you have embedded trauma? First thing, you talk about it. You post about it on social media. Could be from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It could be recent. It could be exactly what happened here last night. We have a very traumatized community. There's a lot of traumatized communities, not only in the United States, but across the world. I find that almost everyone that I talk to and I ask, "Hey, how you doing?" Bleh. Negative emotions come out. That's trauma. That's trauma that's deeply embedded. And it could even be a deeply embedded past trauma that is making a current situation, which objectively may not be traumatic, it's making it worse. Okay? Because it's through the lens of the glasses that you're wearing. And if you're wearing trauma glasses, that's what you're going to see. So I'm finding it in the words that people are saying. where I ask them how they're doing, and they just drop all the negative emotions that they're feeling. Okay? That's not normal. That's not healthy. It's not healthy. It needs to be worked on and released, not released on other people. And this could get to the root of why people are behaving violently in this way. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. I have my own ideas as a former prosecutor in dealing with gun violence and violence in general. That's not what this is about. This is about helping you through your trauma. The second thing is, if you are reminded of a past traumatic situation, and if the emotions of it stay with you for more than 20 seconds, you have not resolved it. And this is where people use the word triggered. That person triggered me. This workspace triggered me. That thing that you said triggered me. That is your trauma that you haven't processed. It's not what the other person did. Because if you have released the trauma and processed it, what they said would not have bothered you. Okay? So if you're being triggered, you have unresolved trauma. Whereas if you are reminded of something that was traumatic in the past, and it doesn't have to be violence, it could be a lost relationship, a lost job, lost health, lost whatever. Could be a fight with somebody. If you're reminded of it, but you're emotionally neutral about it, like you remember it, but it just literally rolls off of you, you have processed it and released it. That's where we need to get to. So, the way beyond trauma is, getting to the other side of trauma is learning how to cope. How do we cope in the world that we live in? Coping helps the nervous system find calm and relaxation and stops the loop of the traumatic thoughts in our mind. These thoughts, if we don't stop them, if we keep worrying and playing through trauma, it creates neural pathways in the brain, and if we don't neutralize them, it will play out as PTSD, endocrine issues, fight or flight, like our body is constantly in fight or flight, and it'll become worse over time. I know this all too well. So because of what happened last night, it brought me back to a traumatic situation when I was a prosecutor exactly 20 years ago this month. To be honest, I would not have thought about it. I haven't thought about that for 10 years. Seriously, haven't thought about it. It took me 10 years to process it. Haven't thought about it. I thought about it for a little more than 20 seconds. So it's like, oh, guess what, Allie? I'm going to talk about essential oils, okay? So there's a really voluminous amount of research out there on essential oils. And I would recommend that you go to PubMed.com and type in whatever you want. Essential oils and trauma, whatever you need. There are some amazing research studies. So this oil that I'm holding right now, I'm not going to name because it is with a specific company. It is a trademarked blend, and I need to be able to talk generically about oils and about the research, okay? But the topic that I have been talking about, the word is in the name, okay? I'm just going to leave it at that, as I've been smelling this all day and all last night. So what the research is telling us, so we have GABA receptors in our brain that serve to control fear and anxiety, which then causes overstimulated neurons in our brain. That overstimulated neurons creates anxiety. So these GABA receptors respond to a neurotransmitter called gamma aminobutyric acid, which regulates our nervous system. So do you want your nervous system to be overstimulated with these neurons causing anxiety because of your fear and the trauma, or do you want them to be calm and rested and relaxed? I think it's the latter. So there are citrus oils that actually impact the GABA receptors that are going into this fight or flight, anxiety, trauma, fear-based response. Citrus oils, okay? Smell them because the receptors are here in the brain, all right? Smell, 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 smell. Now these need to be a really pure oil. These cannot be fragrance oils. You can't use your hand lotion. You can't smell candles. The purest of the purest of the purest of the purest oils, okay? If there's something else in the bottle, it's going to tamper with it. So citrus oils do that. Bergamot, lavender, amazing to calm the nervous system. So these research studies are showing us that smelling essential oils can create new neural pathways. I want you to think of a neural pathway in the brain like walking in the woods. You see the well-worn pathway because people have walked it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If you have unprocessed trauma, you have a deep pathway in your brain so that anytime anything happens, you're going to take the easy route and go down that neural pathway of fear and anxiety and trauma, and you're going to feel triggered. Because our brain takes the easiest pathway possible. To create a new pathway, it's basically like walking through the woods and you're like all these, limbs and branches are in your way and you're stepping in holes. It's like, I don't want to do that. That's not a comfortable walk. When you smell an essential oil, it creates a new neural pathway. So instead of walking the trauma road every day, you're sprinkling the trauma road with flowers. And when you step on the flowers, it smells really nice, and then you enjoy the pathway. It will calm your nervous system, and the oils will get you out of the endocrine fight or flight that trauma puts you in. Okay? So there is a blend that I use that, and again, I'm not going to name it. Don't ask me to, because I have to be as compliant as possible, and I'm not going to name a particular blend. But this blend has sandalwood, frankincense, valerian, divana, lavender, geranium, helichrysum, lime, and rose. All of these are amazing to calm the GABA receptors in the neural system and your pathways. All right? So if you are here in the mid-Michigan area and if you are struggling with what happened, if you are anywhere in the world, and you just empathetically feel for what is going on in this community. We've got 3 dead students. We got 5 at the local hospital where I volunteer fighting for their lives. Suspect took his own life. As a prosecutor, I'm going to be blunt and say, well, now we're not going to know why he did this. But at least he's not a problem anymore to himself or others. But this is traumatic for everybody. So smell your oils, okay? This is your public service announcement. This is not woo-woo BS. You know I don't do the woo-woo BS. I need proof, not fluff. There's an abundance of research out there. If you have ever thought these are a bunch of woo-woo nonsense, you probably have some trauma and you probably should be smelling some citrus oils, some lavender, some bergamot, some valerian. So I hope this helps you. I hope this helps you. And if you're struggling with what happened, I'm there with you, and we will get through this together. So I will be mobilizing some of my healing students, and we will be going once they clear the police do not cross crime scene tape, and I'm not going to go in the buildings, but we're going to do some energy clearing on campus. So that is going to be my contribution to my alma mater, which I love so very deeply. I am on that campus almost every single day, and in beautiful weather, I am walking that river, the Red Cedar. I'm walking it almost every day. I've done it for decades. I graduated a long time ago from there. So, Jennifer, if you know what brand of oil I use and you know the topic that I'm talking about, that'll tell you the name of the blend. All right, take care, everybody.